Hey everyone, this is Man of War here, and I'd like to welcome the Warheads back. Today I want to go over 5 things that I think Total War 3 Kingdoms does really well and completely change the formula of the Total War In this video, the 5 things that I'd like to talk about are the Prestige system, the Spy system, which is a change from the Agent system. I also want to talk about the new General system, where it's only 6 units to a General, and each General has their own unique qualities. I also want to talk about the tech tree, and last but not least, the endgame, which I think is the most impressive turnaround. So for the first thing at hand, we'll talk about the Prestige system. So in Total War 3 Kingdoms, you have a prestige system in the sense where you start off as a noble, and as you gain prestige throughout your endeavors on the campaign map, you will gain ranks. So every time you gain a rank, you unlock more things for your future kingdom to do. As you can see here, mousing over second marquee, it says it unlocks the diplomatic option to create coalitions with other factions, as well as enables adjustment of faction-wide tax levels, and it says increases your prestige by capturing and expanding settlements or by it tells you how to increase your prestige. The point here is that in order to increase your prestige, you need to capture settlements. So if you look here, small settlements such as villages will give you +5 prestige, and I'm pretty sure that does not increase. Oh, it increases once you get it to its max level, or its second closest to max level. So there's 2 ways to really get your way all the way up to Emperor, and those are building tall or being an expansionist and capturing a lot of territory. In the case of how I typically run my campaigns, I go all out on capturing the most amount of territory. However, that comes with its own set of drawbacks that I will explain in another video. Every time you increase your prestige level, you will get an option to stick your prestige points in, which is new to the Total War series, as opposed to having a set amount of spy positions or a set amount of administrator positions. The team at Creative Assembly decided to add the feature where you could slot your points wherever you would like. This was not in the original version of the game. This came out shortly after, I believe it was the DLC that added the Emperor mechanics. So in that sense, you can build your faction however you would particularly like it. So if you like having a lot of spies, you can have a lot of spies. I believe it's up to 6 at max level, and you can slot as many points as you humanly can in there, while only putting maybe 1 or even 0 points into the other ones. I found that this was a very creative way of giving the player more choice in how they want to build their faction, and you weren't stuck in a dedicated path that they had created for you. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the new agent system, or in this case, the spying system. So in Total War 3 Kingdoms, they completely revamped the agent system, which in previous games, agents would be seen on the board much like the generals are. However, in this game, your agents are specifically behind the scenes, and it makes a lot of sense given the Chinese history where spies would be placed in the court to find out what maneuvers other kingdoms were doing. Setting up betrayals was a big thing back then, and all that other good stuff. So if I were to click on one of the spies that I currently have employed, it gives you various options, and I think Creative Assembly did this really well. So depending on the position of the spy that you have, who can work their way up the political ladder in that particular faction all on their own, you are given options to apply your spying skills. So for instance, You can discredit the faction, which causes key characters in the faction to lose their satisfaction with that particular ruler. This will cause them to leave the faction and go to the recruitment pool, where you may be able to recruit them depending on your distance from them. And it's not always a for sure thing, but that faction guarantees losing a character. Sometimes you have to do it multiple times, which costs points. So in the sense of points, you're looking at undercover network points, and that spies cover. So cover is essentially, what does it read here? The rate, so it's basically how they cover their tracks after they complete an action. And your undercover network is how many friends they have in the faction and that type of stuff. It makes sense, but realistically in this game, it's just a point system that you gain points depending on how friendly your spy is with everybody else in the faction. And this one is how high they are up and how many people they can silence after they do that action. Point being is that in this game, you're basically trying to get to the highest level where you can enact family actions. So if you're in their main court, or you're stuck in an army with the leader of that faction, you can assassinate the faction leader or the heir. And these are super important actions in terms of the grand scheme of things. Not every faction leader is going to act the same, and if the heir ascends the throne, you may be able to convince that heir that you're not such a bad guy if you were at war with them, or it could have the exact opposite effect. If you're super friendly and you assassinate their faction leader, the next heir may not like you at all. It really all depends on how you play it, and I really like the creative outlet that they used for agents in this game. It's not always useful, and a lot of people will probably disagree with me on this, where they miss the old agents, but I found it really difficult to micromanage all the agents running around the field, and I like how this is a very simplistic way of putting agency to work, especially with such a large map and so many other things you have to focus on at the exact same time. So that's it for spies right now, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. The third thing I'd like to talk about is generals and characters. So in Total War 3 Kingdoms, what I find that they did really well was they laid out each character with their own set of unique attributes. So in this game, there are 5 attributes associated with the character, those being experience, resolve, cunning, instinct, and authority. Not only do they have specific attribute points allocated to them based on whether they're a legendary general or a unique general or just a generic general, they also have traits which also impact the attribute points. Now, characters are not simply one-dimensional tools for you to just wage war with. In Total War 3 Kingdoms, they can be spies, they can be administrators, they can be confidants. So there's many different ways that you can use characters in this game. Not only that, but Creative Assembly made them extremely customizable. So you have the option of changing out the weapons, changing out the armor on everything except legendary characters, changing their mounts, changing their followers, and changing their accessories. And having certain things attached to a general will increase or decrease the attributes depending on how you feel you should be using them. So for instance, strategists and commanders are often more inclined to be administrators and not on the field of battle. So that will show in their attribute points as well as in their skills, depending on how you want to spec them. Creative Assembly definitely did in a large amount of work into character building in this game. So for instance, if I were to scan over to Zhu Chu, he has brave, dutiful, and intimidating. So these are the character traits that define him. They define how he's going to get along with other general characters, as well as how that's going to affect his attributes. Not only that, he's aligned as a champion, which means he's going to have better resolve than, say, a sentinel or something like that. It's color coded, so it's very easy to spot which one he's going to be interested in. So coming back to the attributes for the generals, expertise is goes into melee evasion stat. Resolve goes into the general's health. Cunning goes into the amount of ammunition that the general will provide the units. Instinct is the melee damage for the general specifically, as well as recruitment cost decreases. And authority is unit morale. So depending on which generals you have and how you want to build your army will really depend on how interesting you find the system. Now, everybody has small complaints about this, and I understand why, because the legendary characters are often more overpowered than everybody else. But I like the semi-historical aspect of this and how they built the characters around the novel surrounding the Three Kingdoms. I believe it's the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I feel like they fantasize the characters just enough to make them feel extraordinary, but also make them feel a little bit more realistic at the same time. So Creative Assembly has done a fantastic job here with just building the character base. But not only did they do that, they also, let's just go here. They also built character relationships into the fabric of the game, which I really, really enjoy. Character relations are interesting, and they don't have a huge impact on the game, but they do have enough of an impact to make a difference. So for instance, if I'm going to scroll over to Sunren, or the Rising Sun, if you will, we can look at what she values as a character. So based on her traits, these are the values that she's more like. These are the values that if somebody has similar values, they are more likely to get along. So let's just naming just three. She values kindness, admires zeal, and admires ambition. So we can look around and see what connections she's already made, as well as the connections that she's trying to make, and how she might get along with these people, even if they're on an enemy faction. Every character will build their relationships, so sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're rivals, sometimes they're oath sworn, which is like so much higher than friends. And then there's I think eternal enemy or something like that. There's something that's acquaintances is bad, and then there's rivals. Rivals is above acquaintances. So in terms of characters, I feel like that is one of the best things that Creative Assembly did well in Total War Three Kingdoms. Up next, for the fourth thing I'd like to talk about, we're going to be talking about the tech tree. So the tech tree in this game is legitimately a tree, which I think is a fun joke, but also really cool at the same time. You can see how the branching paths for each type of unit will affect how you're doing things. So in Total War Three Kingdoms, everything is color coded, from your blue for your commerce, your green for your farming and population, a purplish color for your industrial, administrative is yellow, and then military is red. And it's much like the generals, it's color coded to suit those things. So for instance, vanguards are more military focused. Champions are more population and farming focused. Strategists are more focused in terms of commerce and that type of income. Your sentinels will be based around boosting your industrial income, and your commanders will oftentimes be in positions of power, which means they're going to be in branches of the government, which makes a lot of sense in terms of administrative duties and stuff. So like I just mentioned, much like the generals, each part of the tree is color coded. So you can find all of your commerce boosts for the most part in one section. So that includes trade routes, trade influence, and general overall commerce income boosts. In the green part of the tree, you'll find food boosts. You'll find more ways to build up your food reserves. You'll find peasantry income. You'll find advancements in spearmen and the like, because those are also color-coded green. Over in purple, you'll find things to boost your industrial income or shorten the amount of time that it takes to build buildings, because that's also industrial. So far and so forth. Each one of the tree also has branches that intersect between two sections. So for instance, industrial and commerce kind of go hand in hand, and there's a lot of buildings that focus on not just one, but both. And in a sense, you have to have certain pieces of the industrial branches filled out in order to get some of the better techs in the commerce tree. Or if you're looking to decrease the amount of corruption, a lot of the time those are industrial buildings that do that, but it's also part of administration. It's really cool how Creative Assembly built this tree to intersect at places where you need both, and it makes sense if you were to, back in the Three Kingdoms Warring era, it makes sense that these sectors of government would be intersecting in order to build these things. So not only did they use their creative freedom to build this really cool looking tree that sprouts cherry blossoms when you activate a tech, you also get to see what may have happened historically as these branches of government had to intersect in order to produce the results that basically clicking a button and getting a tech would. So I found that this was one of the most impressive things in Total War Three Kingdoms for me. Not everybody loved this, and I remember the reviews, everybody was complaining about how the tech tree didn't make any sense and stuff like that. But I disagree. I found that this was a very creative way, instead of just looking at a weird branch. Like if you guys remember Total War Shogun, it was legitimately just a scroll and then small branches, and it was like, oh, you did this, well, keep going down in the line and you'll eventually get to this. It was boring. And this is a much more aesthetically pleasing but also interesting way of going about tech in Total War, and I found that this was one of the better things that they came up with. The last thing on my list of 5 things that I really like about Total War Three Kingdoms is the end game. So even from the time that I remember playing the end game of the campaign was mostly just kill off the other kingdoms and become emperor yourself. You have to take over the kingdoms. But since then has expanded past that point. So with the addition of DLC that included the Emperor, the endgame has expanded. So not only are you trying to take out these other kingdoms, but there's a bunch of other stuff that you get once you hit basically kingdom status. So when you become king, you're vying for emperor. So I'm going to pull open this court screen here, and as you can see, the court screen has been drastically expanded from previous iterations. So originally, from start to finish, it was always the your faction leader, your factionaire, your what was it, grand director, or no, prime minister. You would have your grand tutor, your grand commandant, your grand excellency, I'm trying to remember all of these. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was about 5 court positions, and then you had your heir, your prime minister, and your faction leader, and that was beginning to end. Honestly, that was a little boring. But once you hit king level now, your court expands. You now have a minister for everything, including wiping your butt. That's an exaggeration, guys, but you get what I'm saying. There's a minister position for just about anything you could ever want. Not only that, that helps keep your faction happy. I mean, every time you give someone an administrator position, it gives them satisfaction, which keeps them from going away. So it's pretty helpful in the end game, especially because you're going to need a lot of characters because you're going to be building a lot of armies. Also, they have added, what else? There's a few other endgame mechanics that I'd like to look at. So not only are you part of the kingdom, let's head over to the diplomacy screen. You can demand abdication, but that was always there. So let's go into negotiate. Okay, so for instance, Kongrong is already part of my empire, but it's now possible for you to pull other factions into your empire. So initially, in the earliest versions of the game, you would get to this level and you would essentially be alone. It would be you, your big kingdom now, and all the other factions would start to look at you with jealousy and not want to be your friend, and you lose trade agreements and you lose just about everything else. Because most of the time it's a coalition or an alliance of 3 people who end up making it big, and then they separate and then you have no friends. So they added the ability to invite people into your empire. So from my understanding, what that does is it raises their attitude towards you. Not only that, I believe they give a little bit to be part of the empire, so you get an income boost. And not just that, but it's almost like an alliance in and of itself. You can ask people in your empire to come to war with you against the other kingdoms, and it turns into a more grand scale feeling of total war. And unlike a lot of other historical games in the Total War series, this is the first time I've seen war on a scale like this. So let's say each kingdom has about 3 empire factions. All those empire factions will be brought into the war, and they will constantly be infighting amongst themselves, as well as assisting you in your hostile takeover of the other kingdoms. So there's that. Not only that, you can kick off the end game earlier now if you want. So by capturing the emperor from Dong Zhuo's faction, or doing something like that, you can either choose to host the emperor, or you can choose to oust the emperor and make yourself emperor right from wherever you get him. Now, I think that's interesting because that was never an option. You always had to build your way up to it. But if you decide to kick off the whole emperor thing ahead of time, I feel like that's more of a challenge in the grand scheme of things. I have yet to do it. However, I feel like that would be a fun playthrough once I'm done with this specific Let's Play. So definitely let me know in the comment section below if you guys would want to see that, where I just beeline for the Emperor and we take it from there. Not on point right now, but basically with the entirety of the new mechanics, you can still have alliances, you can still have coalitions. The negative attitude change just from becoming emperor isn't so great anymore that it's overwhelming. And I feel like after the many changes that they made to this game, they finally made it reasonable. It's not like Shogun 2 or Attila where you hit a certain point and it's just overwhelming. The amount of people who are after your throat, it's just savage. You're battling every single turn 5 and 6 times. And that gets exhausting. Here, you can still play your political games. You can still use your spies. You can still make friends and make alliances. Even if they're fragile alliances, there's still options available for you other than just all-out war. And as much as I love going to war and taking out some generals, it gets exhausting. And I feel like Creative Assembly did a really, really good job in figuring out what they could do to make the end game not so overbearing, and I would even consider saying burdensome. This is my favorite part of all the changes that they made. I mean, don't get me wrong, the game still has a few glitches here and there, but for the most part, the game has been fleshed out to the point where it is playable for long periods of time without finding a single bug. And that's how I feel about the end game of Total War 3 Kingdoms. And that concludes the 5 things that I really like about Total War 3 Kingdoms. So if you guys stuck around this long, I'd really like to say thank you guys for listening to my opinions. And I will say that these are just my opinions. These are just the things that I really like about this game. You guys are free to have your own opinions, and I'm not going to disagree with you. I just chose the 5 things off the top of my head that I really liked about this game. So if you liked what I had to say about this game, feel free to hit that like button down below and hit the subscribe button. I post content like this all the time, and I'm especially involved in Total War 3 Kingdoms for the time being. I have a Let's Play series for this game. It's my Sun Jian campaign, which is what I'm using to record this video right now. I'm just using the save file from that. I try to post at least once weekly, and I try to get my uploads up on time. YouTube's not always cooperative with that, and my schedule is not always cooperative either. But the best way to stay updated is to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell if you like what I'm doing. I also post on Twitter every time my videos go live to make sure that everybody's updated and knows what's going on with me. I also have a TikTok channel, and I usually post little snippets of the video just as a precursor to uploading the videos. There's one more thing I gotta say, and that is I am a part of a group called Dark Omens Esports. I will have their video at the end of my video today. They are a great group of guys, mostly do online multiplayer games, so Rocket League, Call of Duty Warzone, Apex Legends, and one of the guys has been doing some Halo Infinite streams lately. These guys are all on Twitch. They're awesome to watch. They're super, what's the word I'm looking for? They're very talkative with their chats, and I'm not very articulate right now. I apologize. But they're a really good group of guys. They love to talk with their viewers, and they're so much fun to watch. So I like them, so I will be supporting them in every facet that I can. I would really like if you guys went and checked them out. I'll leave their links to their Twitch channels in the description below, so you guys can check them out if you please. One last time, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the Let's Play. Have a good one.